Many years back, tyrants used brutal torture and death to instill fear and horror in the minds of those who disagreed with their judgments and attempted to question them or their governments. In the history of mankind, it has been documented that if a person is evil and has committed awful atrocities, a simple death is just too humane for such a person. Instead, they must die in agony and harsh vengeance or anguish to properly establish the value of their punishment. This is where the brazen bull, sometimes known as the Bull of Phalaris, appeared. This monument may not appear to be as intimidating at first glance, but it conceals something evil and horrifying. This exquisite bronze statue may not look like a killing machine, nor a Machiavellian torture device, but it is. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but regardless of how magnificent this bronze statue appears to you, what you're looking at is a sadistic torture device, just as dangerous as the guys who created and commissioned it. The information of the intrepid bull was discovered in the Bibliotheca Historica, which translates as a historical library. It is made up of numerous ancient works authored by Diodorus Siculus, a Greek historian. Siculus' account of world history, as well as events from ancient Egypt through Emperor Alexander the Great, are recounted in these books. In ancient Egypt in 560 BC, Phalaris, a powerful but merciless dictator, ruled the beach town of Akragas, which is known as modern-day Sicily. In a harsh dictatorship, he reigns in a prosperous and beautiful metropolis. He was vicious and relished torture, and it was rumored that he had children served on his plates. Perlaus, his imperial sculptor, is said to have presented his king with his new work, a model of a bull in dazzling brass one day. However, this was not an ordinary statue. Perlaus designed this sculpture in the shape of a bull with an entrance or a gateway at its rear. Through its gateway, a human could be hurled or stuffed into it and locked away on the outside. It was sculpted with flutes and whistles, was hollow inside, and was strong enough to endure a raging fire. When a human is tossed inside the bull, a raging fire is lit beneath it, along with an acoustic device that is inserted into the bull's mouth to be roasted to death. The convicts were burned alive, and the odors got expelled through the bull's snout, which had been stuffed with incense to mask the smell of roasted meat. After the burning, the skeletons were collected and used to make bracelets for Phalaris. The brazen bull, on the other hand, was more than that. The interior of the brazen bull is hollowed, allowing for the connection of an acoustic system that amplified the roasting victims' screams, for all those seeking to punish them to listen and merry with great joy. This bull was created to be a musical torture instrument. The acoustical apparatus was rather creative. These acoustic pipes were designed to transform the victim's screams into the sounds of a gently roaring bull. The first victim of this heinous punishment is arguably the most intriguing component of this story, because he was Perlaus, the sculptor of the brazen bull. Perlaus was a bronze sculptor, artisan, and craftsman. This type of status was considered slavery at the time, or at most, a slave to the owner. Regardless of how vicious he was, Phalaris never discussed with Perlaus about the brazen bull. Perlaus gave the brazen bull to Phalaris as a present in an attempt to gain his favor, possibly in exchange for his liberty. Perlaus stated to King Phalaris when he proposed the idea, "The offender will wail and shout in unending anguish, and through the sound pipes you will hear his screams as the softest, most sorrowful, most harmonious bellowings. Your perpetrator will burn to death, and you will be able to enjoy the music." Phalaris is said to have told Perlaus of the torture method. His words disgusted me. To Perlaus' dismay, Phalaris, certain that the device was demonic, asked Perlaus to enter into it and demonstrate the acoustics. Phalaris detested the idea of such cunning cruelty and was resolved to retaliate well to it. He said, "If your sculpture can indeed accomplish this effect, crawl inside there and imitate the screams, and we'll see if the pipes will play such melodies as you have described," I informed him. After Perlaus entered the bull, Phalaris promptly shut the door and set fire to it. Phalaris burned Perlaus for a short while, allowing him to burn to the brink of death, only to hurl his burnt remains off the peak of a neighboring hill. Although some researchers claim he is not as vicious as portrayed, this is highly disputed, given that he commissioned and used this brazen bull. The mythical traditions and beliefs of the ancient Greeks are fundamental to the brazen bull idea. The bull represented power and was linked to the deities. They revered the mythical Minotaur, a guy who had a head and tail of a bull. The Minotaur was a progeny of a Cretan queen and a white bull from Poseidon, the sea god. Some Greeks worshipped Moloch, a bull-headed god who required human sacrifices. But how could such a heinous torture apparatus as the Brazen Bull be used in a civilized place like ancient Greece? The solution is based on the notion that ancient Greece was divided into multiple rival city-states, with slaves constituting a significant portion of the population. Because this torture was restricted to the city, only Acragas people who had also incurred Phalaris' wrath were presumably executed. These individuals, who were also slaves with no thoughts of becoming free, would not be missed by any family or friends living outside of Acragas. Later, the Brazen Bull was used for amusement purposes. The Brazen Bull was an effective method for Phalaris to get rid of his adversaries, whether it was in the form of transgressions against the beautiful city-state of Acragas, or just to satisfy the gods in a religious event where locals might gather to pray. Because Acragas was a self-governing city-state, Phalaris could toss whomever he wanted into the bull. The audience enjoyed it when the Brazen Bull started blowing smoke out of his snout while screaming the most melodic of sounds. It was certainly an entertaining spectacle to witness, as the bull rocked back and forth as the bellowing grew louder, and the Greeks revered their entertainment. Following the catastrophe, the burned skeletons of the victims were recovered, and because they gleamed like gems, onlookers were allowed to collect them and adorn them as ornaments. After Phalaris was deposed, the Brazen Bull disappeared. Tired of Phalaris' tyranny, the people of Acragas united together to form a revolution. Telemachus, their new commander, hurled Phalaris into the Brazen Bull, where he met the same end as the slaves he tormented to fulfill his brutality. The Brazen Bull was eventually seized and transported to Carthage, which was conquered by the Romans. The Sicilian delegates were permitted to take the Brazen Bull along with them. The tale of the Brazen Bull remains on even today. The Brazen Bull quickly became a lethal weapon in the hands of the Romans, who actively used it against the Christians. Even though some historical Christian saints were said to have been martyred by the Brazen Bull, the Catholic Church categorically denies this. Nonetheless, let's consider the account of Saint Eustace. He is said to have attained martyrdom after being executed in the 2nd century. A lion, and a wolf of all things, robbed him of his money, slaves, his wife, and children. There are several contradicting stories about what transpired, although some believe he regained his riches and family. Hadrian's orders, however, resulted in the man, his wife, and their children being executed by being roasted to death in the Brazen Bull. According to folklore, Saint Eustace and his family were both burned alive in the Brazen Bull. Eustace was not the only martyr executed in the Brazen Bull. Saint Antipas was one of many who died in the Brazen Bull in 92 AD. Antipas was carried to Artemis's temple and thrown into the blazing Brazen Bull according to legend. He was claimed to have pleaded aloud to God to accept his soul and fortify the remaining Christians' faith. Before being burnt to death, he also atoned for the sins of his tormentors. However, the Brazen Bull mythology lives on, and the manuscripts written by Silicus can still be accessed today. It also lives on in mainstream movies, because this type of cruelty continues to captivate audiences. In movies like Immortals, Saw 3D, electronic games like Amnesia: The Dark Descent, and even television shows like 1000 Ways to Die, the Brazen Bull is portrayed as an efficient and gory way to kill and torture its victims, while providing its ravenous audience with an exquisitely fascinating work of entertainment. And that brings us to the end of the video. Let us know in the comments section if you think this Brazen Bull punishment is the cruelest punishment you have heard about. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell to get notified when we post a new video.